I'm just reading the...
Excuse me, Congressman Houghton has now joined.
All right,
Hello
great.
there.
Well, we have a small but hearty and tired band who managed to get up as early as you this morning, so you can start whenever you like.
Okay. Well, one tired person to another. Well, look, we've had sort of a marathon week down here. We've done a whole lot of things. Yesterday we were doing the Religious Liberty Protection Act, and we're doing Treasury Postal Service and government appropriations, and we're just slogging through the appropriations process. Of course, the big issue in the Senate is health care. I haven't been involved in that because it hasn't really been grappled with in the House, and in the Ways and Means, which we concentrated on for really 2.5 days, was this tax bill. But the bright news is that we're going to have a big picnic coming up over the weekend, and in Great Valley, and we're going to have Rick Lazio up there, and then on I think it's Monday night, isn't it, Chet? We go down to Cape Kennedy.
Yes. Right.
And we'll have quite a contingent down there to see Eileen Collins. You know, Eileen is the world's first space shuttle commander, and she'll be shooting off into space unless they cancel it about early in the morning on Tuesday, and we're going to have quite a few people down there. So with that, there's an introduction. Let's go to the question.
Starting this morning at WKSN with Gordy Norris.
Morning, Congressman. How
Morning,
are you doing?
Gordy. How are you?
Good. Of course, yesterday, the president meeting with the students from Columbine High School. What's your thoughts? What's going to happen with Congress and any changes in the gun laws?
Well, that's a good question. I don't know. I thought the gun issue was put to bed. Of course, I was away all that time, again, being in South Africa. But it'll come up again, and I don't know when it'll come up. There has been no indication in the House when further legislation on gun control will come up. But it will be, and I would imagine it'll be before the August break. So that's the only thing I can say, Gordy. I don't know anything more specifically.
Well, do you have any thoughts on where you stand on that?
No, well, I don't really, because I don't know what the conditions are. I mean, I've always felt that this was something which involved guns, but it involved schools, it involved families, it involved a whole lot of other things. Whether we'll have an overall sort of, they should call it an omnibus bill on this, I have no idea, or whether it will just go back to issues such as sales at gun shows or trigger locks. I just don't know what's going to be in that bill.
Across town at WJTN, Terry Frank.
Good morning, Congressman. I wanted to talk with you because the AMA came out today and said that the Senate more or less bowed to the insurance industry on this patient's Bill of Rights. Now, the AMA is saying that they're hoping the House will make the necessary changes to give proper care to patients and hold insurers more responsible for care.
Yeah.
Do you like what the Senate Republicans have brought forth? Where do you stand on the issue of trying to get this Bill of Rights in place?
Well, I don't know whether you would call it a Bill of Rights or whether you would call it personal access or you call it fairness. Obviously, the medical establishment has changed dramatically with HMOs. Because a very significant number of people have moved over into the group practice rather than individuals. So the question is really a legal one right here now. Should patients be able to sue the HMOs and then they in turn the insurance companies, or whether they should not? And that's the big issue. I'm against having an awful lot of additional legal fancy footwork in this process. At the same time, I suppose patients do have a right to protect themselves, and if they can sue a doctor or sue a hospital, there's no reason they shouldn't be able to sue an HMO. I feel uncomfortable about it though, because it sort of gets away with the concept of medicine and care and concern, which I grew up with when I was in Corning. But this is something which the lawyers are fighting over, and I don't know how it's going to come out in the House. But the Senate did approve that plan. There were a couple of people, John Chafee and Peter Fitzgerald of Illinois, broke with him, and I think it was a very close vote, something like 53 to 47. That's the issue.
All right, thank you.
All right.
In Dunkirk, WDOE, Dave Rowley.
Good morning.
Morning, Dave.
Let's talk a little bit about Rick Lazio.
Yeah.
You're going to have the gathering this weekend, and obviously a potential candidate for the U.S. Senate. What does Rick Lazio have to do to better position himself against Rudolph Giuliani and Hillary Clinton?
Well, he's got to get out and around. I think he has. I think he's been very faithful about touching base with all the upstate Republican leaders and in Long Island. I think he's been not quite so aggressive in New York City, but that's really Giuliani territory. But when you take a look at the overall state, that's what he should do, and he is doing. Somebody said you can't keep water boiling for 18 months. And he's got to pace himself. But I think he's doing the right things. He does not have a full-time manager yet. He's got a sort of an interim guy. He's got to have somebody who will pull this thing together and control it, and then continue doing the things that he'll be doing on Sunday. 70% of the state is really outside of New York City, meaning Long Island, Westchester County, and upstate, and that's where he's concentrating.
And talk a little bit about the qualities, what you like about Rick, and your thoughts on his chances.
Well, you always like the people that you associate with and respect. Why do I respect him? He's a very bright guy. He's very personal. He's the type of person you'd like to talk to and share concerns with. He's a man of his word. He is really a giant killer. He knocked off Tom Downey down there. So he's a little bit like this guy Wayne Gilchrist in Maryland, running against Tom McMillan, this great all-star, handsome professional basketball player. He just went door to door to door to door to door, worked and worked and worked, and that's the type of guy Rick is. He's a housing expert. He's very emphatic about low-income housing projects. And frankly, from my standpoint, if I can, be bare bones about it, he's a moderate. He is not an extremist.
Thanks, Amo.
Okay.
At WCIK, Ted Mariah.
Morning, Amo.
Morning, Ted.
Question about the tax cut proposal that made it out of the House and Ways and Means Committee this week, and it's heading to the floor of the House. What are your thoughts? Do you really feel as though that this is going to make its way to the president's desk? And he's threatened to veto this. Is this just wanting to make a campaign issue, or are Republicans really serious about tax reduction?
Well, as you know, in a two-party system, there's no real sort of party line on something as massive as this. This is a huge, huge tax cut, $860 billion over 10 years. The Senate will be almost as big. I'm from Missouri on this. I agree with tax cuts. I think they ought to be done, but I don't think that they should be done in such huge numbers. And although I voted to get the bill out of the Ways and Means Committee, I'm almost sure that it'll have to be pared down. And if it isn't pared down in the House and in conference with the Senate, then it'll be pared down to the White House. The thing that I'm most worried about, really, is that we'll get the worst of both worlds. Let me just sort of describe. You got a minute more?
I do.
That the House will come out with a big bill. The Senate will come out with a big bill. And they'll pair it to sort of places someplace in the middle. Let's say $800 billion. That's a lot of money. That really sops up most of the surplus over the next 10 years as projected. I feel very uncomfortable about projecting out that far. I don't know what's going to happen next year, but that's the way it is. So then it'll go to the president. The president says, I don't like it, I'm going to veto it. And then the Republican says, well, would you want a tax cut? And he'll say, yes. And they said, well, would you take half that? And he'll say, no. And they'll say, well, you take a little less. And he says, well, I might. But in order to do that, I want some of my spending provisions. So we'll end up with a rather large tax cut and a rather large increase in expenses, which is the worst of both worlds. Now, in practical fact, the best thing that can happen is to do nothing. because what will happen is that the expenses will come in. They'll more than be covered by the surplus. That excess money will automatically go to reducing our debt. And that's really almost as important as anything, because that's the thing that's going to be around the shoulders of our children in years to come. But anyway, in terms of the procedures here, this thing is supposed to be voted on by the entire House on Wednesday. I hope it isn't. I hope there'll be a redone package before it goes over to the Senate. But as it stands now, it'll go onto the House floor, no amendments, and will be voted on Wednesday. I think that ought to be changed. It can be changed, but that has not been decided yet.
Amo, one follow-up, and that concerns the political side of this for the campaign for 2000. Are Republicans, from your gathering, willing to take this issue to the people in the presidential election?
Well, I think they're willing to take a tax cut, as everybody is. Gephardt wants a tax cut. Lott wants a tax cut. The president wants a tax cut. The Republicans want a tax cut. The question is, how big is it? And what does it do to the other things? I mean, I think that there are several issues out there, sort of mega issues. One is Social Security, and I think that we can wall that off. There is enough money to do it, and that'll be on the way to being fixed. But you've got, in addition to the tax cuts, you've got two other things. One, you've got the debt reduction. Secondly, you've got Medicare. And Medicare has to be looked at. I mean, you know the impact on several hospitals up in the district. Hospitals are going to close all over this country unless we fix the Medicare issue. The reimbursement schedule is not fair now. So if we just do the tax cuts, sop up too much of the money, and don't have enough left for debt reduction and Medicare, I think we're in big trouble. That's why this thing has got to come down. If it does come down, I would be more than happy to go out to the voters and say this is a good plan.
Okay, any other radio reporters waiting for a question this morning? If not, we'll go to the Evening Observer and Carl Whitehill in Dunkirk.
Just listening today.
Okay.
Yeah, morning, Carl.
Thank you. In Post-Journal,